What is worth fighting for, and would you make that fight? Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, now over 830 videos strong. Number two being the classic haunts playlist, 31 plus videos in 31 days leading up to Halloween, in October 2025. The poem in question today is known as The Skeleton in Armor by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and it reads as such. Speak, speak, thou fearful guest, who with thy hollow breast, still in rude armor dressed, comest to daunt me. Wrapped not in eastern balms, but with thy fleshless palms stretched as if asking alms, why dost thou haunt me? Then from those cavernous eyes pale flashes seemed to rise, as when the northern skies gleam in December, and like the waters flow under December snow, came a dull voice of woe from the heart's chamber. I was a Viking old, my deeds though manifold, no skald in song has told, no saga taught thee. Take heed that in thy verse thou dost the tale rehearse, else dread a dead man's curse. For this I sought thee. Far in the northern land, by the wild Baltic strand, I, with my childish hand, tamed a gerfalcon, and, with my skates fast bound, skimmed the half-frozen sound that the poor whimpering hound trembled to walk on. Oft to his frozen lair tracked I the grizzly bear, while from my path the hare fled like a shadow. Oft through the forest dark followed the werewolf's bark, until the soaring lark sang from the meadow. But when I older grew, joining the corsair's crew, over the dark sea I flew with the marauders wild. Wild was the life we led. Many the souls that sped, many the hearts that bled by our stern orders. Many with sail bout wore the long winter out. Often our midnight shout set the cocks crowing, as we the berserker's tale measured in cups of ale, draining the oaken pail, filled to overflowing. Once, as I told in glee tales of the stormy sea, soft eyes did gaze on me, burning yet tender, and as the white stars shine on the dark Norway pine, on the dark heart of mine fell their soft splendor. I wooed the blue-eyed maid, yielding yet half afraid, and in the forest's shade our vows were plighted. Under its loosened vest fluttered her little breast, like birds within their nest, by the hawk frighted. Bright in her father's hall shields gleamed upon the wall, loud sang the minstrels all, chanting his glory. When of old Hildebrand I asked his daughter's hand, mute did the minstrel stand to hear my story. While the brown ale he quaffed, loud then the champion laughed, and the wind gusts waft the sea foam brightly, so the loud laugh of scorn out of those lips unshorn from the deep drinking horn blew the foam lightly. She was a princess child, but I a Viking wild, and though she blushed and smiled, I was discarded. Should not the doves so white follow the sea-mew's flight? Why did they leave that night her nest unguarded? Scarce had I put to sea, bearing the maid with me, fairest of all was she among the Norsemen, when on the white sea strand, waving his armed hand, saw we old Hildebrand with 20 horsemen. Then launched they to the blast, bent like the reed each mast. Yet we were gaining fast when the wind failed us, and with a sudden flaw came round a gusty skaw, so that our foe we saw laugh as he hailed us. And as to catch the gale, round veered the flapping sail. Death was the helmsman's hail, death without quarter. Midships with iron keel struck we her ribs of steel. Down her black hulk did reel through the black water, as with his wings aslant, sails of fierce cormorant, seeking some rocky haunt with his prey laden. So toward the open main, beating to the sea again, through the wild hurricane, bore I the maiden. 3 weeks we westward bore, and when the storm was over, cloud-like we saw the shore stretching to leeward. There for my lady's bower built I the lofty tower, which to this very hour stands looking seaward. There lived we many years. Time dried the maiden's tears. She had forgot her fears. She was a mother. Death closed her mild blue eyes. Under the tower she lies. Never shall the sun arise on such another. Still grew my bosom then, still as stagnant fin. Hateful to me were men, the sunlight hateful. In the vast forest here, clad in my warlike gear, fell I upon my spear. O death was grateful. Thus seemed with many scars, bursting these prison bars, up to its native stars my soul ascended. There from the flowing bowl deep drinks the warrior's soul. Skål to the Northland, skål. Thus the tale ended. So, what do we have here? We have the story of a berserker who has caught the eye of a young woman. That young woman was way too, quote-unquote, good for him, from too high in society for a berserker, and it didn't matter. Now, we don't really have the true understanding of whether or not they ran away together or whether or not he ran away with her. There's a little bit of evidence both ways, right? He caught her eye. She was interested in him. But then later, it is said that her bed was left unguarded, not that she left on her own. And she was crying. The scene towards the end there where she was crying about being away from the civilization, right? But I think that interpretation is open to be had either way in this poem. Surely someone will tell me I'm wrong, but I think that interpretation is there to be had either way because of the circumstance on both ends of the running away. And then our speaker does get to a boat and does get away, and they have their life together until she passes away. After she passes away, he is distraught. There is nothing left for him. So, he is not so sad to go after falling on his spear. So, what do I want to talk about with this poem? I think that the main thing that is interesting to me here is what happens if at the end of this we go all the way back up. Remember that that story there that we had, we have the title, The Skeleton in Armor. Now, the story about this poem is that Longfellow heard a story or was around, I don't know exactly which, the excavation of a Viking who was obviously long since passed, so he was a skeleton, and he was still wearing his armor. So the skeleton in armor is an interesting idea. What could we mean with that? Well, what is your skeleton? You hear phrases like, he has no backbone. That means he doesn't stand up for anything. You hear references to being sturdy, right? Well, what's your sturdy? The constitution of your sturdiness comes from your skeletal system. It doesn't come from your muscles. It doesn't come from your fat. It doesn't come from your whatever. The constitution of being sturdy physically is your skeleton. The skeleton, therefore, in my opinion here, is used as a symbol, a metaphor for the idea of having something to stand for. For our berserker, this is the idea of his beloved. I have my beloved. That is the thing which makes life worth living. What about the armor? The armor is the battle. So our speaker here has the thing worth fighting for, his beloved, that's his skeleton, and he has the constitution to make war. The idea that it is worth the fight. What is the fight? Well, here the fight is literally abandoning your entire civilization, going someplace off the map. It's an interesting idea for a poem, but it is also something interesting to take with you into life. What is there in your life worth living for, and would you put up the fight for it? There are, the more I look into this quote, the more I realize that it might be one of those quotes that is ever present through history, and different people are assigned having said it, but something to the effect of, a man who has nothing for which he would die is not fit to live. That is, I think, largely what is going on in this poem. And it is symbolized with the idea of the skeleton remaining, as well as the armor. The armor is the willingness to make that battle. What is the battle in your life? What are the principles in your life that are worth standing for? What are the principles in your life that are worth fighting for? What is the fight that would be tolerable for that principle? It sounds perhaps a silly question. Are principles worth all the fight all the time? Or is there a line after which something is not acceptable? The speaker in the poem, for the idea of his love, is literally willing to forsake essentially all of existence. I mean, we don't really have a corollary for this today. This idea of going off the map in this way, this idea of abandoning society. I don't really think that it is something that tracks very well into today's world, because everyone is so connected through electronics, through technology. But this was headed into the abyss at that time. Is there anything for you, for which you would head into the abyss? I think that is a question worth contemplating. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.